Hey, good morning. I'm just making sure that I'm live. Hold on. It's a little slow this morning, so I just want to make sure that I'm actually connected. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so today I want to talk to you a little bit about details and why details are important. Um, so when we went about hiring executive assistants in our business, um, we very purposefully set up a complicated application process. So we posted it on Facebook as a job, but you had to go to a link um, in order to apply, and there was a form that you had to fill out. And then we kind of, we had people jump through a couple hoops in order to complete the application. And the reason that we did that is because we were looking not only to, we knew we were going to get a lot of applications, and we did. Um, we actually had 50 people who completed the application correctly. Okay. But we wanted to make sure that people were going to, were detail oriented, right? And that's something that people are looking for when they're looking for a bookkeeper. So I wanted to give you guys a couple things that I think are really, really important that are going to make a difference for you when you are responding to people about, requests for proposals from bookkeepers, or you're connecting with potential clients. A couple things that are going to make a really big difference. Um, and I say this not only as someone who, has sent out a lot of proposals, um, but also as somebody who gets a lot of, I get a lot of proposals, a lot of unsolicited proposals from people. So, a couple things that I want you to think about when you're putting something like that together. So, first of all, make sure that you are talking to the right person. Okay. Number one, make sure you're talking to the right person. I often get requests from people that don't really understand what our business does, don't really know what our needs are, haven't really looked us up, and are not, they're not contacting the right person. Or we've had people contacted within our organization for specific things, and they were not the right people. Okay, so make sure that when you're reaching out to people, that you have the right contact person, that the business is running. We've actually had, so we had an LLC that we shut down years ago, that we still get inquiries from vendors about that business. Okay. And it's funny because we have other businesses, um, but it's like, if you don't, if they're not even doing the diligence to say, um, oh wow, this business isn't in business anymore, um, then we're not doing business with them in general. And I know that can seem, some of you might be like, wow, that's really harsh, but we get a lot of proposals for different things. Um, and so when I'm evaluating those proposals, I'm looking to see how much homework you've done before you approach us. And that's one thing that, I teach consistently in bookkeeper training school is, go find their website, go find their social. Is it active? Who are the owners? Go find them on LinkedIn. Do your homework, okay? And because the thing is, so many small businesses don't. They really don't. Okay, so that's one thing. Um, and this is so simple. This is so, so, so simple. Just spell the people's names correctly. I can't tell you how many people. Okay, my name's Kristen, two I's, right? I get Kristen with, Ten. I get Christine. I get all sorts of versions of Christine. Um, it's like, guys, you know, spell my name right. It's like, you can Google Ingram Digital Media. My name's gonna come up. Like, um, it's one of those things. Or they spell Ingram wrong. Um, my husband's name also gets spelled wrong quite frequently. Um, and it's like, that's really simple, right? That's really, really simple. Um, One thing that I see a lot is, I get a lot of random um, messages on Facebook and on Instagram. And clearly, again, people have not done their homework. Okay. So really make sure that, that you're doing, you're doing that homework when you reach out to people. Make sure that you carefully read what the like if somebody puts out like I'm looking for a bookkeeper that works with QuickBooks, okay? Don't lead your proposal with, "Hi, I'm a bookkeeper that works with Xero." Because as a business owner, I'm going to go, "Okay, clearly, right? Clearly you weren't paying attention. I'm looking for QuickBooks. If you say you work with Xero, then you're off my list." One of the things that I first, one of the things I first learned about hiring when I was hiring interns for a firm I worked for, is we were looking for any excuse to put it in the bin, right? Any excuse to put it in the bin because we would get so many applications. And so the goal was to find a reason to put a resume in the bin. And I know that that sounds really terrible, but when you're getting, dozens of applications, hundreds of applications for a position, and now with online, you get so many more, right? You're just looking for, okay, let me get this in the bin, right? How do I get this in? And so, yeah, Courtney, I would imagine that you, that you deal with that all the time, with people misspelling your name. It's tough when you have a variation, right? It's really, really tough. So when we went through applications, we were looking for, like, if somebody had a non-professional email address, gone. If there were misspellings, gone. If if it didn't look like in their cover letter that they had done their research on our company, gone. I mean, we were just looking to get, we were looking to get from 200 applications to a manageable number, right? And so it's those little things, those little details that are so incredibly important. And so, especially today, with the, I mean, it's scary, right? I mean, I know we've talked about this in bookkeeper training school, like how much information is out there about us now. And so when a vendor approaches me, right, like cold messages me and knows nothing about my business, I just kind of go, okay, no. And so I don't want to see that happen to you. Okay? I want to see you go in prepared. You know what, you've gathered as much information about, this business. And that's why I recommend in the course we talk about tracking like 10 businesses at one time. Right? And so you can be generating a bigger list, but you're really courting, right? Which means that like you're actively communicating with, you're following Facebook pages of about 10 clients at a time, right? Or 10 potential clients at a time. And then if one of those says yes or one of those says no, then you take that off the list and you replace it with somebody else. Because if you get much bigger than that, then it's a lot of people to be tracking. Okay. But what you're doing is you're doing your homework about these businesses, right? So you're doing your homework, you're liking their posts on Facebook, you're seeing if they're active on LinkedIn, and you're trying to get to know their business so that when you pitch that business, right, you know them already. right? You've followed their posts, you've liked their posts, you know who they want to work with, you know what they do, right? When you do that, you're building relationships. Businesses want to do business with people they like and they trust. And if they get to know you, whether, this was easier before COVID, but it is still done. We're still doing this every single day online, where we are building relationships with people, we are getting new clients, and we're moving forward. But in order to do that, you must pay attention to the little things. So if you need to, I recommend having a spreadsheet. Have a spreadsheet, have those businesses that you're following, in your spreadsheet, have their website, have their LinkedIn link, have their Facebook page link, so you can easily get back to it. And just make sure that you've got the details that you need. If you get the owner's name, put the owner's name in your notes. We don't expect you to remember all this stuff. Just document it. Just document it and have it there. Okay? Because it's those little things that are going to make such a difference when you're starting to get clients. And like I say, that you've got this tipping point that happens where once you've started building the relationships, and remember, not everybody's going to be your client, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to refer somebody to you. Okay? So you get those first couple clients, and then those first couple clients start referring people to you, and then other people start referring people to you, and you get to the point that I'm at in my firm where I'm 100% referral based. Okay, so all my new clients come in from referrals. I get to be very selective about who I work with. I actually have people on a waiting list. That's an awesome place to be in. But in the beginning, I was doing all these things, right? I was building relationships with people and building those networks and doing those things. And the little things, those little bits of knowledge, making sure that that names are spelled correctly, making sure that you understand, the business. It's really funny. So, some of I have a podcast. I have a podcast called Small Biz Mama. Before I had Small Biz Mama, I did a podcast with my husband called Small Biz Life. And if you listen to this week's episode of Small Biz Mama, okay, I actually have Jeff on. Okay. And Jeff and I are talking about working together, how to work with your spouse and make your business work with your spouse. And then next week, we're going to talk about parenting. And last week, we talked about life. So we're doing 3 episodes that talk about the 3 aspects that we talk about in Small Biz Mama. And if you're interested, go to smallbizmama.com and check that out. Or you can listen to it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Okay, we're all over. So that was, Small Biz Life was the 2 of us together. And we did that show before we had Eric. And then after we had Eric, it got really hard for us to record together. So we ended that show. And, and I miss recording with Jeff. I love recording with Jeff. It's so fun. So we recorded that together. But the reason I talk about that is because, so Jeff and I, when we did that show, we ended that show 2018, I think. I think Eric was still pretty little. So I still get pitched by people to be on that show. And it's pretty clear. We haven't done an episode of that show in almost 3 years. But I still get people pitching me to be on that show. Now, it's really funny because you're like, okay, I have another show, right? And if you did a little bit more homework, you'd realize I have a new show. And you could try to pitch me to be on that show. So, little details, very important. Okay. So Linda's asking, how does a person without experience in QuickBooks get a job, even if this person has a certificate in bookkeeping and QuickBooks accounting, yet can't get a job? Okay, so Linda, I think it's your approach. You're looking for a job. So 95% of small businesses are not going to hire a bookkeeper as an employee. Okay. They're going to hire a freelance bookkeeper. Okay. Because most small businesses do not have enough bookkeeping to hire somebody on as an employee. Okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to hire a freelancer. Now, most people, when they hire freelancers, they're not posting jobs for them, right? So they're not going to go, they're not going to go on, I don't know, what are the job sites? They're not going to go on Indeed and hire, and post a job. What they're going to do is they're either going to go to their local chamber, okay, and look up the listings there. They're going to post something on a local Facebook page, or if they're in a Facebook group full of people in their industry, they're going to post there. Or they might post on their wall, does anybody know anybody? Or they're going to respond when you reach out and contact them and start building a relationship with them and saying, hey, I'm a bookkeeper. Are you all ready for your 2020 taxes? Okay. That is what helps you get positions. But if you're looking for a job, okay, in air quotes, there aren't a lot of bookkeeping jobs out there. Okay. You could, now, first of all, you said that you've got a certificate in bookkeeping. You need to be looking at software certifications. Okay. So you need to be looking at, like, if you don't have the QuickBooks Pro Advisor certification yet, you should go get that. Because the problem is, like, and people ask me this all the time in bookkeeper training school, they're like, why don't you offer a certificate? And I'm like, because a certificate for me doesn't mean anything, right? So the story that the parallel I give to that is, if you have a computer person, and you have two computer people show up at your door to fix your computer, and one of them says, I went to, Mark's School of Computer Repair, and here's my certificate, and the other one says, I'm Microsoft certified, which one is more meaningful to you? Right? And I bet you the majority of you would say, well, the guy that's Microsoft certified, because that's the software I'm using, right? And you're certified by the company that makes the software that's on my computer. And so what we do in bookkeeper training school is I really push going for the QuickBooks Pro Advisor certification. Okay. Because I think that's really important. So, Linda, if you don't have that yet, make sure that you do that, and then stop looking for jobs. Stop looking for jobs and start looking for freelance. Because if you can get yourself some clients, that's ultimately your best path to success in this field. Okay. Jasmine says the business one was amazing. I love the dynamic between you two and the amazing relationship advice. Oh, thank you, Jasmine. That's great. Yeah, we had a lot of fun recording those. If you want more of us like together, if you actually go to smallbizlife.com, we have 160 something episodes of Small Biz Life, and those were a lot of fun. And that's just Jeff and I kind of, talking about business. We both have a tremendous amount of business experience with small business, so that it was a lot of fun to do those. Great, Lyndon. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful for you. Mind the details. Get to know your people. Build relationships. It's all about relationships in business today. I think people are kind of starving for relationship right now, and for connection. And so if you can build those connections, either locally in your community or online, your business is going to thrive. All right. I hope you have an awesome day. Take care. And hey, those of you that are in Bookkeeper Training School, remember, we have a live call at 1:30 Eastern today. You can go into our community and get the link, and I'll see you guys on Zoom if you're in the Empower Bookkeeper Network. All right. Take care. See ya. Bye.